Welcome to the North American Real Estate Update, real information on real estate, empowering the decisions of home buyers and sellers. I'm Dave Jenks with Jay Papasan, and Jay, the big news for September is the state of the economy and the record-setting buyer's market. Lots of questions to be answered. What's happening with the economy? Are we headed into recession, or have we stepped back from the brink? Is the Canadian real estate market in danger of following suit with a 2-year drop in U.S. home sales and prices? And finally, in this buyer's market, Jay, how can and do you really get your home sold? For the first, news on the U.S. economy. Shaky, but it appears to be stabilizing. The U.S. gross domestic product, the key measure of economic growth, jumped to 1.9% annual growth in the second quarter. Now that's after a drop of 0.2% at the end of 2007 and a small under 1% increase in the first quarter of 2008. Unemployment rose 1% to hit a 4-year high of 5.5%, and the Consumer Price Index, the primary measure, Jay, of inflation, rose to just over 5%, but that's the highest it's been since 1991. So, what's your read on all this information, Jay?
Well, it reminds me of a word they used a lot about 20 years ago, stagflation. And that's when you have slow economic growth, rising unemployment, and rising inflation all at the same time. The truth is that the U.S. has been in a 2-year economic malaise, and that's really driven by the drastic drop in real estate and the home construction industries.
Yeah.
Add to that the rise in oil prices, a lending crunch, trade deficits, and a weak U.S. dollar, and the U.S., frankly, is skating on thin ice. The good news is that the recession that was predicted earlier this year so far has been averted. The U.S. economy may be shaky, but I don't think there's any reason to panic just yet.
Okay, stay calm, right? Well, let's check out the economic condition in Canada. The Canadian GDP, its measure of gross domestic product, is down 0.3% in the last growth figures, which is really the first quarterly decline since 2003. Unemployment is steady at 6.2%, and inflation is up 1%, but its annual rate of about 3% is still a pretty healthy number.
Healthy is a great word for it. Canada has strong economic fundamentals and stability, and they've avoided the subprime lending issues that the U.S. economy has faced.
Right.
They're experiencing an economic slowdown, and their housing industry appears to be lagging the U.S. by about 2 years.
Housing. Let's look at the housing picture. First in the U.S., home sales, Jay, are down 15% from 2007, 1 year, and 32% from the record high sales of 2005. The inventories of homes is up 22%, representing now an 11-month supply, which is the highest in 20 years. And finally, the median home price is down 6% for the last year, and that is the first significant decline in average sale price in the last 40 years. Should we be worried?
Not necessarily. If you look at the big picture, this really had to happen. It's a market correction. Remember, from 2001 to 2005, the median home price in the U.S. increased by 58%.
Wow.
That's nearly 10% a year, Dave.
Yeah.
That drove down affordability, and frankly, it just knocked a lot of buyers right out of the market. The good news is that the price correction appears to have been completed. If you compare the 2000 home price with the 2008, where we are today, you'd see an annual appreciation of about 5.1% over that 8-year period. That's absolutely in line with long-term home price growth over the last 30 years. It looks like we're back on track. The market may drop further, Dave. It might overcorrect, actually. But what I think will happen is that will quickly be regained when the market regains its legs.
Wow. Well, let's see what all this means for home buyers and sellers. But before we do, let's take a quick check at the Canadian real estate picture. Home sales are down there 13% from last year's record numbers. Inventory is up 20% to a 5-month supply, which has moved, therefore, from that hot 6-year seller's market to a balanced market, and home prices are flat after that 6-year double-digit annual appreciation. So what does this mean for them, Jay?
Well, the Canadian real estate market is starting to correct just like the U.S. Will it be as strong as the U.S.? I don't think so, but fundamentally, it's about affordability. They've had a 78% home price increase over the last 6 years. That's 78% in 6 years. It now takes an average Canadian homeowner 41% of their income just to pay for their home.
Wow.
That's just not sustainable. They've avoided, now the good news is, they've avoided the subprime lending fiasco that we faced in the U.S., and they have tighter government controls on mortgage practices. Right. So in general, their housing market is much more stable. But just like the U.S., after a 6-year ramp up in a seller's market, Dave, they're rapidly moving towards a buyer's market.
So Jay, here's the question of the day. If I need to sell my home, whether I'm in Canada or the U.S., how do I get it sold without taking a financial bath?
Well, the first thing you need to be clear about is your need to sell. If you're in the U.S., particularly in one of the deep buyers markets that's full of foreclosure-based homes, you may choose to wait.
Right.
Now, if you're in Canada and we're looking at the potential market drop, you may choose to put it on the market now to avoid any further price drops.
So I guess wherever you are, I mean, if you're going to have to price the home right if you expect it to sell.
Absolutely. People say location, 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 and they're right, but that only determines your price range. In fact, every home that goes on the market is in competition with every other home for sale in that market. Yeah. And if you aren't priced lower than the competition, and if you don't show better than the competition, you will not attract interested buyers. It's a price war and a beauty pageant at the same time, Dave.
That's good. So just because you put your house on the market, I guess it doesn't mean that you're actually in the market.
That's right, Dave. In a buyer's market, when fewer homes are actually selling each month, you have to be priced right and you have to look right to be one of the homes that will sell. Now, the available buyers determine what does sell. And in many areas, that market that's actually selling has gotten very, very small, and most of the homes out there, they're just not in it.
But Jay, can't I really just sort of test the market? I mean, list with a higher price and then, bring it down later if I have to?
Every listing that goes on the market has a window of opportunity. When it first comes on the market, it attracts the attention of all the interested buyers and the agents that work with them. But if it isn't priced right and it doesn't show well, those buyers are going to move on. The only way to get their attention back is a drastic reduction in price. Most sellers who don't understand this will use small incremental price reductions, and really what they're doing is chasing the market down, Dave.
Wow. So there you have it. If you need to sell, you have to do three things. Check your local market conditions, because they matter most. Get your home in prime showing condition, and have your realtor guide you to the price that will get it to sell. What we want to remind you is, even though the national picture can affect the overall trends, real estate is and always has been a local business. You need to know the big picture, but base your decisions on local conditions. Find your most trusted local real estate professional to guide you. This has been the September 2008 edition of the North American Real Estate Update. Tune in next month when we focus on how to buy and invest in today's market. Remember, Jay, they call it a buyer's market. Maybe it means it's a good time to buy. Thanks for watching.